Today, we will be talking about Tales of Dogman. Our first story begins in Fort Myers, Florida, 2020. The story reads as follows. I wasn't sure what it was at first, thinking it might be a bear, but the way it acted aggressively and the footsteps it left behind made it clear. Everything I found points to it being Dogman. It all started a few months ago. One night, I woke up to tapping on my bedroom window, like someone tapping their fingernail on the glass. It was just enough to wake me up. I got up, made some coffee, grabbed a glass of water, and went outside. I sat down, had a cigarette, and heard some weird noises. It sounded like clicking, not like the usual sounds of bugs I'm used to. Then, about 5 minutes later, I heard a deep but short growl. It was around 3 a.m. After about 20 minutes, the coffee was ready. I went back outside to my porch, took my first sip, then heard this really scary scream coming from about 150 feet behind my porch, maybe from the next block over. Anyways, I finished my coffee and started to go back inside. Just as I opened my glass slider, something started attacking my porch door, banging on it really hard for almost 5 minutes straight. I must admit, it scared me so much. So I hurried back inside, poured myself another cup of coffee, and waited for about 20 minutes, peering out the kitchen window to see if anything was out there. Since my backyard was completely dark, I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but after a while, I gave up waiting and went back outside. I sat down, sipping my coffee. I heard what sounded like someone violently banging on my neighbor's new aluminum fence. I looked around on my side, but saw nothing. I figured whatever it was must have moved on to the other side of their property. The banging stopped abruptly, and that was the end of it. There was no more noises for the rest of the night/morning. Fast forward to Thanksgiving 2020, 2 months later. I was awakened again at 3 a.m. by the same tapping on my window. My dogs hadn't barked either time, which made me suspicious. So I went outside, coffee in hand, with my iPhone ready in case I needed to capture anything on camera, but there was nothing there. I was on the phone with my trucker buddies, discussing what had happened before Thanksgiving, and they were clueless. Keep in mind, we all grew up in these woods long before the internet was a thing, so we spent a lot of time playing in them. About 2 hours passed, and the sun was up enough for me to vaguely make out a shape in the woods behind my house. It was about 5 feet tall, and stood in that position for a good 45 minutes. I managed to snap a picture of it, but the quality isn't great. The events of that day and night will stay with me forever. Not even 2 hours later, I heard a tree branch snap off and something heavy crash to the ground. There was no mistaking that sound for a tree simply falling over. As it turns out, a tree on the edge of my neighbor's property, about 25 feet up, had a huge branch, roughly 5 inches in diameter, twisted off and snapped like a twig. It's still hanging there, not quite touching the ground, but measuring about 12 feet long. I ventured into the woods for a bit to see if I could find anything, but there was mostly some obvious human trails that seemed well used, along with a few small animal trails. Additionally, there was a makeshift trail with broken trees along the side. There were quite a few large obstacles to climb over, with logs piled up in an odd teepee-like shape, and several grass beds scattered throughout the woods. One of the grass beds seemed recent, while the others didn't look very comfortable. After exploring, I went back inside for a drink, and then headed out to my garage to work on some projects. Since we had recently moved to this house, things were still a bit disorganized. As I was sorting through boxes, I heard a loud commotion coming from the small .25 acre plot across the street from me. something large was moving the bushes, and I noticed a large dead tree that had been knocked down previously. Something had cracked it open, and was presumably eating the grub inside. The noise quickly ceased, and I heard whatever it was run north towards the canal, which was very close, only about 90 feet away from my driveway. Fast forward to 10 p.m., I was still in my garage, but this time the door was closed. Accidentally, I banged on the garage door, and to my surprise, I heard something bang back from the other side. Thinking it might be my teenagers playing around, I banged again. This time, I was met with a really loud growl. I dashed out of my garage and through the house into the outside area. The trash cans were open, and my Thanksgiving turkey carcass, which had been in a box, was gone. However, a rancid smell lingered, following the stench to my backyard. I called a friend who's experienced with things in the woods. He advised me to stay calm and move slowly, turning off my porch light. I sat outside smoking a cigarette. Then suddenly, I heard a loud brushing noise coming from the bushes on the corner of my house. When I turned around, I heard something large trampling the grass down the sides of my yard, while the neighbor's dog went berserk, barking at it. Realizing I wasn't about to chase it into the streets, I stayed on my porch and waited. Then, a big blackish figure, standing over 6 feet tall, dashed by from the other side of my house and disappeared behind my neighbor's house. When the security lights turned on, it ducked behind their above-ground pool, crouching over in plain sight. It appeared to be twice my width, and easily weighed between 400 and 500 pounds. The next day, I discovered a foot or paw print in an abandoned anthill in my yard, which I had exterminated weeks prior. Unfortunately, the morning dew ruined the footprint the following morning, but I managed to take a picture for size comparison. Several factors lead me to believe it's a Dogman. Firstly, we have a nearby marsh spanning about 20 by 20 square miles with no trails or roads in it or out. Additionally, there's a waterway within 100 feet of my house, measuring 12 to 15 feet deep. I grow a lot of my own vegetables and fruits, and some have gone missing. Regarding the woods behind my house, there are various trails. Some are clearly human-made and frequently used by neighbors, while others are small animal trails. However, there are also trails that seem nonsensical, zigzagging through vine areas and proving difficult to navigate. The trees surrounding these trails are mostly broken off or leaning, reminiscent of one might expect from a Bigfoot. So far, I haven't come across any structures or markers, nor have I found any bones. However, I did receive a particular gift. One morning, a pile of leaves on my doorstep. These leaves were from plants in my backyard and couldn't have appeared there magically. Louisiana, Jefferson Parish, 2012. A few years back, in South Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, I had an experience worth sharing. And just to clarify, here in Louisiana, we refer to counties as parishes. I was out one night, hunting deer and wild pigs, on a protection levee system designed to shield the town from hurricane floods. As I strolled along the levee, there came a point where it turned left, leading to a canal surrounded by woods, and situated about 100 yards from some houses. On the left, there was a natural ridge extending into swamps and marshes. As I rounded the corner from the ridge with oak trees, I caught the sound of a growl. Initially, I assumed it might be a coyote or a dog, so I proceeded cautiously. Then I heard a rustling in the bushes and saw a familiar tree shake, accompanied by another growl. Turning my flashlight in the direction of the noise, I caught sight of a pair of eyes reflecting an amber/yellow hue. What caught me off guard was the fact that the bush stood about 6 feet high, yet the eyes I saw were approximately a foot above the bush. When those eyes came into view, I slowly began to back away, keeping my flashlight focused on the creature. as I retraced my steps towards the turn, intending to head back to my parked truck, which was roughly 3/4 of a mile away. The creature emerged from the woods. I flashed it again with my light. At this point, I was probably about 30 feet away from it. I could see its entire body and face clearly. The body was covered in black hair, with hints of brown mixed in. The hair was thickest around its head, neck, chest, and upper back, resembling a lion's mane, but less pronounced since all the hair was the same color. It possessed pointy ears, with a small amount of hair extending from the tips, giving the impression of slightly elongated ears. It stood upright on 2 legs, albeit with an unusual backwards bend to the legs. Its arms were notably longer than its legs. The hands were an odd combination, resembling a mixture of human and bear, akin to oversized raccoon front paws. They had the appearance of paws, yet also possessed fingers. That's just the best way I can describe it. If you've seen the movie The Howling, you might get an idea of what this creature looked like. It's almost as if the creators of that movie knew something that others didn't. At this point, I was in a state of panic, so I instinctively raised my rifle. I typically hunt with a Romanian AK, customized with a camouflage paint job that I did myself. The method of hunting I was engaged in wasn't exactly legal, hence why I brought along my Romanian AK. If I had abandoned it, it wouldn't be losing that much money. The ammunition I use is specialized for hunting feral dogs. I've successfully taken down deer and hogs with these rounds before. One shot is all it takes to bring them down. But getting back to the story, as I aimed my rifle and prepared to fire, the creature growled and took a step towards me. I didn't hesitate and fired a round directly into its chest. I was certain I hit the creature, as it took a step back in response. Seizing the opportunity, I sprinted towards my truck. That's when it unleashed an unnerving growl, and howl unlike anything I've ever heard before. Having grown up immersed in hunting and fishing, I believe I was well acquainted with everything the woods had to offer. However, the sounds that were being made by this creature were entirely unfamiliar to me. So, as I hurried back to the truck, the creature trailed behind me, maintaining a cautious distance. It continued to stalk me until I neared the well-lit area where my truck was parked, near the town library and elementary school. At that point, it ceased its pursuit. In my quest for answers, I attempted to locate others who might have encountered something similar in the area. However, all I came across were old legends of the Rougarou. I confided in my grandpa about the incident, but framed it as a story a friend had shared with me, expressing skepticism about its validity. To my surprise, he recounted a similar experience from his youth when he was 17 years old, in the same area, while hunting at night. He described hearing an unearthly howl that sent shivers down his spine, and the sensation of being stalked as he made his way home that night. Although he never caught a sight of the creature, he could distinctively hear its presence trailing him through the bush and swamps. As you can imagine, this encounter left a profound impact on him. His account shook me to the core, challenging my perception of reality. I haven't been able to shake off that memory of that night. A few days later, I returned to the scene of the incident and stumbled upon 2 large dog tracks, each as big as my hand, and I wear a size large glove, further fueling my intrigue and unease about what had happened. I want to thank you so much for watching The Night Tapes. If you can do me a favor and please like and subscribe, that would really help out and mean the world to me.